By labeling yourself too early, it can actually have a pretty negative impact on your artistic journey. In this video, we're not doing a lot of photography. We'll actually be doing a lot of talking. So if you're not into that, I'm sure one of the other fantastic photography channels has some new content out today. That being said, if you've been struggling with the idea that you need a photography identity, like a label, in order to build an audience on social media, this video is for you. Hi, I'm Jude, a photographer of both film and digital, and I'm based out of Boise, Idaho in the USA. Usually I'm out taking pictures of what I like to call interrupted landscapes, or I'm wandering around downtown Boise taking pictures of the streets. Today we're talking about how giving myself a label too early on had a negative impact on my personal growth as a photographer, and how it wasn't until I tossed away those labels and really looked at everything with fresh eyes that it changed everything, and I started to actually see progress. So if you're finding yourself floundering or trapped in this like plateau of growth, and you're trying to fit yourself into this label that you've created, you know, hopefully this video helps inspire you. Hopefully it helps give you courage to, follow in my footsteps. Throw away that label and examine yourself as a photographer with fresh eyes. Okay, I'm going to start heading back because the sun has pretty much set behind the hill. It's actually still pretty crowded on these trails, so I'm having a hard time like thinking and speaking. I just don't do well when people are watching, strangers anyway. To start things off, one of the first mistakes I made, and this is one that I'm sure a lot of you have made as well. When I first started getting into photography, I was watching a lot of YouTube videos, and I watched a lot of YouTubers who I admired, their content, the photos they were taking, and I thought to myself, I must have the same cameras, the same setup, if I want to take similar pictures. So I invested so much time, so much money into the camera gear, starting out when I hadn't even really figured out who I was as a photographer, or why I loved photography, or what drew me to the art form altogether. If you watched last week's video where I talked about the 4 myths that needed busting, or the 5, go check that out first if you haven't. This will make a lot more sense. But basically, I totally and literally bought into that first myth, that if I wanted to be a successful photographer like those people I was watching, I needed to buy that gear. And this just wasn't the case. I wasted so much time, so much money researching and buying gear when I should have been investing in the art itself, figuring out who I was and answering that question of why. So I was buying all this fancy gear and not really spending enough time to really learn how to use it properly, which resulted in poor images. My photos weren't getting any better. I didn't know why. I blamed the gear. I thought, well, I must need a bigger sensor. I must need better lenses. Instead of just learning the equipment and how to actually produce good photos of high quality using the equipment I had, I just assumed, well, if this photographer is getting better images than me, that better lens or that better camera, it's going to be the answer. It never was. And ultimately, it led to me spending us into a honestly bad situation financially. And then when I lost my job, I had to sell pretty much everything anyway, at a loss, obviously. Another common mistake I made, and again, we talked about this last week with the myths, is I labeled myself very early on. Because I admired the photos of specific photographers that I was watching, I thought to myself, I've got to be that type of photographer as well. I must be a landscape photographer because I like going out into nature, and I like watching landscape photographers on YouTube. I must be a landscape photographer. But it never quite clicked. And the problem I ran into was I was trying to force myself, that square peg in a round hole type scenario, trying to force myself in there. Whew. And if any of you have studied logic or science, I basically found my conclusion first and then tried to find evidence to support that, whether it did or didn't. So 5 years basically of trying to fit all this in there, spending all kinds of money, so much time, and not making really any progress because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Hence, we are talking about it today. These are the mistakes I made. Don't make them. Wow. Look at that. Focus camera. I think the fog is rolling in. Beautiful. Dramatic. Love it. So I would like to personally thank Sean Tucker. I'll link him down below. He's got a great YouTube channel. He's written books. He does presentations and talks. I would like to personally thank you, Sean Tucker, Mr. Tucker, sir. You may never watch this, but that's okay. It was thanks to your videos that changed everything for me. I watched so many of your videos about art, about the philosophy of it, about photography, about mindset and pursuit, that it changed everything. It opened my eyes to just how wrong I was. And I don't think I would be where I am if it weren't for those videos. Now, his approach and what's become my approach is to think more from the perspective of like a philosopher, asking deeper questions of meaning and why, and from that, finding the art within it. Now, this isn't going to work for everybody. You have to decide for yourself. But it worked for me, and it may work for you too. Opening your mind to answering the question as to why you create. That might help you find your art style. And what I realized for myself personally is that I'm not necessarily drawn to landscapes. I'm not necessarily drawn to street photography. What I'm drawn to is quiet moments of peace, tranquility, of abstract light and shadow intersecting and combining into a new shape of moments of loneliness, of solitude, of dilapidation. I'm drawn to those scenes because it helps me communicate the feelings that I have inside, and it also helps me make sense of such a chaotic world. I recently went and tried to take pictures at while trick-or-treating. It was so busy and so chaotic that like I froze up. I couldn't take pictures. It's the same when I go to like the county fair or pumpkin picking or something like that. Anytime there's a big event, I like freeze up and I don't know what to take pictures of unless I can isolate myself away from the crowds and find those small moments of one person sitting alone or one straight building that captures my attention. That's what I'm drawn to. Wow. Oh, wow. Now, I've learned this about myself after months of thought, after months of examining my reasoning, delving into my photography style, looking at the photos that I had been producing that I was actually happy with, and the ones that I was like, bleh. And that's what conclusion I came to. And we can speculate all we want that, it was through the mistakes that I continually made, all the mistakes in the book basically, that led me to this conclusion. And if I hadn't made those mistakes, perhaps I would not be where I am right now. Or maybe thanks to those mistakes, it held me back a number of years, because I know if I knew this about myself earlier, I would not have done what I did. But we'll just never know. It's speculation at this point. All I can do is look forward, appreciate what the journey that I've been through so far, honestly. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. As cliche as that sounds, the journey was worth it to get to where I am. My daughter is up ahead, so she's gonna probably run and want me to hold her. Hang on. Oh my, look at you climbing. Are you climbing up the hill? Why? Wow, you climbed so good up that hill. That's so big.
Why?
Yeah.
I was sad.
Oh, you were sad? Was it because I went on a walk without you? I'm sorry, sweetheart.
I want to visit you.
You want to what with me? Well, after this, not a lot of photography or video making happened. I think that should be pretty obvious. In case it's not, I had to switch gears from YouTube photographer to dad at that point. So yeah, we're on my back porch, which is not where I usually edit, but you know, where I usually edit is dark, dingy, not the most attractive. I didn't really feel like setting up lights. So we're out here to talk and conclude this video. What might not be obvious is that that entire photo session, I was using one lens on my Fuji X-H2 and adapted Minolta 24mm f2.8. Because it's a 24mm on the APS-C body, roughly works out to about a 35mm in full frame equivalent. So I want this video to be a cautionary tale. The moral being, don't let the pressure of labeling yourself come too early. Spend as much time as you can just exploring the art form as a whole. Don't worry too much about what you're photographing or what you're exploring. Just try everything and anything that you can think of. Find the thing that makes you excited to keep pursuing it. Find the thing that really feeds your soul, and then let that label evolve naturally. It will, and if you give it time, it will, and it will align itself better with who you are. The problem that I've found with social media specifically is that the minute you post your first photo, it immediately gets to work labeling you and identifying you and what kind of artist you are. And it starts to push your content in front of similar artists or artists that it believes or users that it believes will find your art attractive so that they stay on the platform longer. This is the whole purpose of the algorithm. And if you're brand new, you might get kind of swept up in that, and you might get excited because you're starting to get seen, you're starting to get some likes, maybe you're getting some comments, and it might make you like align yourself with the algorithm's decision or the algorithm's identity for you immediately. Man, my hair. And the real downside to that is when it comes right down to it, that might not be your end goal, or that might not be your forever identity. And that's what happened with me. As you've probably realized in this video, because I was still in the exploration form of this art, and I was specifically attracted to landscape photography because I admired the landscape photographers I was watching on YouTube, it ultimately began to identify me, the algorithm did, as a landscape photographer. And then I began to identify myself as a landscape photographer, whether it was like connecting with me at the soul level or at the deeper level. And what I found myself doing is just kind of floundering in that art because it didn't scratch the itch that was drawing me into the art form. I got swept up in the movement. I got swept up in the algorithm and forgot to really ask those deeper questions. So thankfully, I've been ultra fortunate to have the community of viewers and commenters and fellow YouTubers around me that have been so encouraging and honestly so supportive and welcoming that I have never felt like out of place. I never felt like I didn't belong here on this platform, and it's been such an encouragement. And I want to personally thank you so much for the comments and the support, no matter what the comment was. You know, I think that the cool thing about you and the people that have been watching my videos, honestly, is that a lot of your comments have been so helpful, creative, constructive criticism of my work and of my videos and of my photos to help me get better and better and better. And I've grown a lot as an artist and photographer just by reading the comments that you've been leaving. So I don't say it enough. Thank you, and keep commenting, keep pushing me forward to continue to grow. So next week, I'm really hoping to get back out there and just do a specific photography video, but we're going to be talking about how to expose film, or how I like to expose film for dark situations, so nighttime photography. We're going to be taking some photos around town using Cinestill 800T. So if that sounds interesting to you, consider subscribing to the channel and turning notifications on so that you're notified when that video is uploaded. That's all I got to say for this video. I hope it was helpful. I did a lot of talking, and hopefully you enjoyed it and you found it useful to your own journey. Thanks again, and I'll catch you in the next one.